Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this regular meeting of Walpole Select Board, January 21st, 7 o'clock, the posted time of the meeting. I call the meeting to order. Let's stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So our first order of business tonight is an appointment with our Community and Economic Development Director, Pat DeShane. We're going to talk about some zoning articles for the Springtown meeting warrant. So, Patrick, good evening. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. So I believe last time we talked, just provided a overview of what the Zoning Bylaws Review Steering Committee has been working on for the past few months. Reviewing the zoning bylaws is pretty extensive, so the whole thought process is introducing these articles in phases, just to make it a lot more palatable and understandable for town meeting, because don't want to overwhelm them with too much. So what's being proposed is 7 zoning articles, 5 of which are really more cleanup articles, is what I would call them, in terms of removing inconsistencies, redundant language, cleaning up to just be kind of really just easier to follow and understand. There's 2 other articles or 2 other proposed amendments regarding changes to the floodplain. So that's section 11 of our zoning bylaws. That is really entirely dictated by DCR, Department of Conservation and Recreation, for new firm and FEMA. FEMA is introducing new firm maps, and so with that process comes new language that we need to incorporate, as well as the date of when those maps will become live. So that whole article is really, it comes from a model bylaw that the state wants every town to kind of initiate if they're impacted by the change to the new floodplain maps. So, and the other article, is changes to the ADU article. This also kind of comes from a state mandate. Governor Healy signed the Affordable Homes Act in August. With that, there's a bunch of changes, one of which included including ADUs as a protected use under state zoning law, section 3. With that came additional language in terms of what a town can and can't dictate. So by and large, our zoning bylaw kind of emit the kind of the hardest threshold of allowing the use by right, but we had to make substantive changes to be compliant with the new language. It's something every town in Massachusetts is kind of grappling with right now, is making sure that they're in compliance with the state language. One of the things with that is by February 2nd, the state language becomes the law of the land. Anyone can come in and apply based upon the state language, and that language will always supersede town zoning. But the town does have the ability to regulate what they can control, such as dimensional regulations. And one of the things that we implemented was a process of limited site plan review for detached ADUs, which we did not have before in the previous bylaw. So really, some of it we can't control, but what we can control, we want to be sure that we're active on that and we're able to regulate what we can. So I'm happy to take any questions, though, or anything specific.
Great. Well, thank you for being here and taking us through that. I know you've taken us through this before, and but it's good to go back through it again. I don't think we had a full board the last time around, so even better. Mm-hmm. So I think a lot of the cleanup stuff is pretty straightforward and shouldn't really be problematic. The ADU part of this is probably going to have some questions. I think those questions fall into a couple of categories. One is, town, we just passed an ADU, a couple of town meetings ago. How does this tie into that? And the answer is, we put our own ADU law in place prior to the governor's law getting in place, correct?
That's exactly it.
And so now that the governor's law has been approved and signed into law and will become effective on what day?
February 2nd.
Which is Groundhog Day, right? So it's kind of appropriate that we're going back around to the ADSU. So, but the point being that we now need to adopt the language of the state Why do we need to do that? Well, if we don't, the language of the state is going to supersede our existing ADU law as of February 2nd. And the big point that you raise is, because people say, well, okay, well, if that's going to happen, why do we have to change anything? Well, the answer is because we do still have the ability to put some language in there that does restrict certain elements of this ADU, and it's to our benefit to do that. So I think that's the discussion that needs to be had as we go forward with this, is why are we making the change, and what does it mean when Groundhog Day arrives? So do I have that right?
That's exactly it. It's exactly it. Yeah.
Okay, all right. I think that's going to be the big discussion on the floor of town meeting, and as this goes through the various reviews and so forth as we get ready for town meeting. So I'd just like to kind of keep it very simple and clear as to why we need to do this so it doesn't get all muddied up. I think the last thing we want is to be exposed in any way here. If we have the ability to cover our own destiny, we should do that to the extent that we can, which may be somewhat limited, but to the extent that we can.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's pretty much well said. I mean, I think I mentioned earlier, I think the biggest hurdle of allowing the use entirely by right, the town's already kind of past that, and that's something I know a lot of our surrounding communities have not touched on. So what's changing is certainly some substantial things that were different than what we had, but by and large, nothing. It's not going to be something that's totally out of place than what was there before, but some language is certainly going to have to be updated.
Okay, good. The second couple of questions that I have relate to planning board, and have you taken the planning board through this kind of discussion yet?
Yeah, so I met with them last week to kind of discuss the articles, provide overview, answer questions.
Okay.
Yep.
And so there's a question of sponsorship here. Have we figured out whether it's going to be the planning board that sponsors this article? And if not, what do we think the process looks like going forward to sort that out?
So I did not get an answer one way or the other. It wasn't something that was decided at the last meeting. As you said, sponsorship of an article is important for getting on the warrant and going forward. So that's something that would probably need to be figured out.
Yeah, I'd like to get that figured out because, first of all, I think it's the responsibility of the planning board to sponsor this article, but if for some reason they choose not to, then we got to sort out, what we're going to do with that. So I'd like to take that, get that clarified sooner rather than later. Is there any time that we have to have the sponsorship figured out by?
I believe the next couple of weeks. Aoife and I were trying to figure it out backwards on a calendar because it needs to get up to the usually this board would notify the planning board's administrative assistant that we received this, we've taken it in, and now they place it. It's like a 60-day clock, I think they have to have a hearing. 65 days for a hearing from the time they receive it usually from this office. So we have enough time because we're doing it now in January, but we need to be mindful of that. I think they're meeting on February 6th, 7th, something like that.
Yeah, I think that
So if we request that Pat, sends them a note, please let us know by the Friday, whatever, the 8th, if you're willing to sponsor this, then the select board will know. If they don't take the vote or are unwilling to sponsor it, your board can take it up, vote, 5-0, 2-3-2 to sponsor the following articles, and then we can start it from our office.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right, so we just want to watch the clock on that, but my preference would be to have the planning board sponsored. So if you could please, in their next meeting, have that conversation with them and see where they want to go. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments for Patrick on the board?
I was just going to thank you, Patrick. I mean, we spoke about the first ADU in depth. It came to our board numerous times. So unfortunate the state now is like having us go back and change it up again. But just thank you for your hard work on that because reading through it, it seems to come across pretty common sense. And obviously the stipulation of this state supersedes what we had in place already.
Yeah, the timing was, I wouldn't say unfortunate. It was just interesting, funny.
Yeah.
We came forward at last, I think it was last October of 2023, and then that's when the Affordable Home Act got introduced, and did not know that was coming until after town meeting. But obviously we couldn't do anything about it until August.
And I think for us to be having passed that at the town meeting, I think it put us in a great position that it was kind of small changes. But that's all.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I was just going to say, thanks for all your effort in working this through. I know on the ADU by right is going to be a big topic of discussion at town meeting.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you think will be a big topic of discussion?
I mean, anything could be brought up and discussed. I mean, overall, like for the changes to sections 1 through 4, I mean, some of them look like pretty big changes, and to some extent they are, but a lot of what's being done there is more or less deferring and sourcing back to state law. We have instances where we kind of repeat state law within our zoning, and it may be done correctly. Sometimes it might be not exactly how state law is written. So one of the big things of changing specifically for sections 1 and 2 is just referencing state law for the process of how a certain procedure will go forward rather than restating it verbatim. So it looks like it's a big change, but it's still the same language that's in place. It's just removing excessive language.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else? Okay, great work on this. Before you go, though, and pleasure of the board, since we're a little early for open forum, if we could accelerate under new business number 2, which is the package store license discussion. We've got Patrick here. We had asked that the Economic Development Committee weigh in on this, and Patrick has kindly taken that for us. So while we have him, if you guys don't mind, and ladies don't mind, accelerating number 2 under new business? Okay, let's do that. So 2 weeks ago, we had a discussion about whether we should be adding additional, these would be package store licenses, so alcohol sold but not consumed on prem. And we were talking about having it within the central business district, the CBD. There was discussion in the board, I think relative support for it, the board members can speak for themselves, but the question came up around what does economic development think about this? And it was a good question, and we thought, okay, let's just defer that decision until we get input from the Economic Development Commission. So I know you guys have met and talked about it. Could you fill us in on that?
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. The commission met today, went over the language of the proposed article to add 2 more liquor licenses for off-premises consumption. And overall, I mean, they understand the reasoning behind it, and I think they took a vote in agreement in support of that article. There was a discussion too of do we want to have it specifically restricted to the central business district, and they discussed options as well as like East Walpole. Is that a location that could utilize it? But by and large, I mean, ultimately the decision was to support what the select board is going forward with. Having a full liquor store within the downtown, it's great. We have a lot of new people living in the downtown, and having something that's walkable and accessible and can help fill a vacancy of something in the downtown. The EDC is all in favor of that.
Great, thank you. Questions for Patrick? Discussion about the warrant article that we're suggesting for petitioning the state for 2 more package store liquor licenses in the CBD.
I still like it, so.
I think it's a good idea too. I agree with the Economic Development Committee, and I think it will help. And so I think it's something we should petition the state for. There's no guarantee that we'll get it, but I think it's worth pursuing. So, anything else on this? Okay, could I have a motion, please?
Is there one on here?
Yes.
I'll make a motion to,
Take it out of order.
yeah. Here it is, sorry. Motion to add the package store license request article to the spring 2025 warrant.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
That's a 4-1-0 vote. Patrick, thank you for being here. Appreciate it. And appreciate all the great work you and the committee are doing. That zoning review stuff is complex and necessary, so well done.
No, thank you. And Jim Crowley's here.
Yes, of course, Jim.
Ex officio member, and
Yeah.
it's a great steering committee, and still a lot of good work to do.
Yeah, you're doing a great job, and thank you, Jim. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, it's after 7:15 now. Is anyone here for open forum? Doesn't look like it, so we'll keep on going. Under new business number 1, we have a vote to accept and sign the general obligation bond anticipation note, or BAN, in 2025. Lisa, I think you're going to take us, or Jody. Jody, you're going to take us through this, okay? Thank you.
As Jody comes up here, I'd just like to say Lisa and Jody did great work with this once again. We kept the highest short-term borrowing rate. Looks like we're only going out for about a year on this one, give or take, maybe, depending on how our reimbursement rate goes with the MSBA, but we're up there, highest it can be. It's not called a AAA bond rating because it's a band, but
So they have a different
Phrase for it,
rating for
yeah.
bands, and we actually got the top rating, which is an SP-1 plus. But it's the highest, I'm happy.
Top is the top.
Yeah, yeah. So, as you all know, initially, we authorized a borrowing of $115 million. At this point, we've borrowed $70 million, and we're going out to band for $7 million. That's what you're signing on today. To date, we've received MSBA funds of about $38 million, which then reduces our capacity to borrow. We expect to have the final figures from the MSBA late FY26, early FY27, which is when we would then go out to borrow. Because at this point, we don't know how much we can borrow because the MSBA figures are still in the air and won't be determined until later. So we received 6 bids. 5 had a coupon rate of 4% and 1 had a rate of 4.5%. The net interest costs range from 3.13 to 3.279, which is really great. The bid is being awarded to Oppenheimer and Company at a 4% discount rate, the net interest cost of 3.13%, and a bond premium of $61,000. So, very pleased to report that. Do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions, just a comment. First of all, well done on getting that through the process, and it's a well-thought-out piece of work that you guys did. I was very, very pleased to see that we continue to get the highest credit rating that we can on these bond issuances. It's important, and it's stuff we've worked on for a long time. We were pleased to get that AAA rating, and we've seen the effects of that. We continue to see the effects of that, and it's great news, continued great news. So thank you for everything you've done on that.
Thank you, and we have a great team.
Yes,
Finance
thank you, Lisa.
department.
And Jim. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Questions for Jody? Comments? Okay. Could I have a motion, please?
Yep, I'll make a motion. I move that the forms of votes presented to this meeting be adopted as written and incorporated into the minutes of this meeting in full.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
5-0. Thanks very much.
Thank
Well
you.
done. Thank you, Lisa. All right, next up, number 3, vote request of Minuteman Fire Rescue Apparatus LLC DBA Allegiance Refuse Systems for a Class 1 dealer license to operate at 2181 Providence Highway. So, Minuteman Fire and Rescue has a license. When I go off, tell me. They have a Class 1 dealer license. They looked to add to that license to sell refuse vehicles, which, as I understand, are trash trucks.
Correct.
They currently sell trash trucks, and KP Law has suggested that in order to simplify the permitting process, we should issue another license for the refuse side of the equation. That way, if they ever decide to stop selling one side or the other, we don't end up having to go and split or redo the permit. So I think that's what we're here to talk about. Is there anything you would add to that,
Just
Aoife?
that it is permissible for them to have, they could add the second DBA to the existing license, but like KP Law suggested, just for full transparency for the public and just so they know that they're 2 separate really entities that are operating out of there, and they suggested that they file for an additional Class 1 license for the refuse side of the business.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? I assume all the paperwork and everything is in order here?
Yeah, we've been going back and forth a good bit with them on this one, so I think we're all set.
We're good, okay. We didn't ask them to come in tonight because they already had the other license, and this was much more administrative, so we didn't have them come in. I'll request a motion, please.
Sure, I'll make a motion to approve the request of Minuteman Fire and Rescue Apparatus, LLC DAB, Allegiance Refuse System for a Class 1 dealer license to operate at 2181 Providence Highway.
Second?
And just a clarification, is that DAB or DBA?
DBA.
Yeah, so just for the record, DBA. Yeah, no, it says DAB. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. 5-0. Thank you. And Aoife, thank you for guiding through that process. I know it was a little bit tricky,
It was a
so.
first for me too, so there's something new every day, right?
Thank you. All right, where are we here? We've gone through that. Okay, so we have number 4, vote to amend the business name on the Class 2 dealer license located at 1171 Main Street, Suite 1, from Robertus DBA Roberts Garage to Roberts Garage Inc. DBA Roberts Garage. Aoife, anything to add to that?
No, it's just purely an administrative change on their end. Instead of operating as a sole proprietor, he has now become incorporated, so he just needs to change the wording. Everything else in terms of the business structure is staying the exact same.
Okay, questions for Aoife? Could I,
Yep. I'll make a motion to approve the request to amend the business name of the Class 2 dealer license from Robert Isa, DBA Roberts Garage, to Roberts Garage Inc., DBA Roberts Garage.
Second.
all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
5-0. Consent agenda. Could I have a motion?
Yep. Motion to approve the consent items as listed on the January 21st agenda.
Second?
And before we vote, I would just note that one of those items is from the Walpole Cooperative Bank for our 300th celebration. It's a clock gift, which, as I understand it, is going to be put on the common in the Central Business District. So it's a very nice-looking clock, and they've donated $28,000 so that can be done. So thanks very much to the Coop. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
5-0.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of January 7th, 2025 as presented.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. 5-0. Okay, on to the town administrator's report. Jim?
Sure. Budget message has been published on the town website and distributed to the various boards and town officials earlier today. The Finance Committee schedule was finalized over the weekend with input from the chair and vice chair. That was sent out to Finance Committee members today also. We have the legislative breakfast with the delegation, school committee, select board, finance committee that's set to be held on February 13th. I believe that's in the high school in the media center, but I'll let you know when I receive confirmation. And last item, Bird Pond Dam. DCR is looking for the board to let them know what the town would like to do in terms of a spillway versus dam replacement. I've sent a note to DCR just this afternoon asking if a decision by May 30th was acceptable, and I'm waiting to hear back from them. I've been working on a rather long memo to the board with input from a bunch of town departments and town council as far as what are your options, what are the potential impacts of choosing one versus the other. I kind of want to lay it all out in one place so you can refer back to it so you're not looking at multiple documents. More just put all the information together in one thing, so you can look at the facts and get input from the department heads. I expect we'll probably want to talk about it over the spring. That's why I've asked them, is a May 30th deadline acceptable? So once the board decides, make it a riverway or keep it a pond, then we can work out the details of an agreement. But the permitting and the design that they're telling me is 2 years, so they just need to know, and then we can figure out the agreements afterwards. So,
Okay.
more to come on that, for sure.
Go ahead.
Follow up on that. So I know you're working on the memo. We had a lot of open questions, and so your memo, it sounds like there's a lot of staff, sort of opinions, but do we have feedback from the state for some of our open questions, or do we still have the opportunity to ask them questions as needed?
I believe there was a forum or some type of online portal where their questions could be submitted, and I was planning on putting that in as an appendix to that, just to answer it. But I'll let you see it in a draft format. If you think I'm missing anything, let me know.
Yeah, I guess the idea is that we might need to have another meeting with them, whether it's a Zoom meeting or whether it's a public meeting or a phone call or anything. If I have open questions, I don't want to go to a vote with open questions. So, I'll look at your memo first, and then we can discuss it after that.
Yeah. But a lot of the input I've received is a lot from Patrick, Carl, Landis gave a real lot of, she's done a lot of digging on this
Great,
one too.
yeah. No.
So
I'll take all that information in, but I suspect there might be one or two open questions.
sure there will,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
Okay, so I'm hoping May 30th works for them, and I'll let you know if it doesn't. Okay.
And however this ultimately does work out, what I want to make sure of is that we have adequate board discussion and debate on this, questions answered, Glenn, to your point, but also transparency to particularly the people who live around the pond. I know we had the meeting with them with DCR, and I know a lot of questions were asked and answered there, but I want to make sure that we're maintaining connectivity with them, that they understand what our process is going to look like, and there probably should be some place in there that we have a little more community involvement. We also, at that meeting, when we were together with DCR, we had discussions with, there was a fellow there from the Hogan family.
Good news on that one.
Okay.
They've actually, in the most recent email, they have walked the site with the Hogans. And
Okay.
they've been in direct contact with them. One of the things, there's a sense of urgency. They've explained to them during larger storms, they've seen some seepage. They pointed out to DCR where they've seen the seepage underneath. So they're saying we need to, it's been a year plus.
It has, yeah.
We need to know town. So
Yeah.
that's good news. They've been in direct contact.
Good, okay. I wanted to make sure that was a commitment we made. But I also want to just make sure that we're continuing to be connected with the people who live around the current pond.
Yep.
Back to your first point, which is the budget message. I just wanted to comment that I thought it was an exceptionally well-written budget message. It was clear, it was concise as it needed to be as you went through the sections. It was a pretty easy read, and frankly, I think it tells a very, very positive story. There are some cautionary notes in there, for sure, and you did a good job bringing those out, especially on the revenue side. But I thought it was a really, really, top-rate job.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments for Jim?
Nope, I thought it was a good budget message, so. And I didn't realize Ben was so tall until I saw that picture of us.
I had to say thank you to the 300th as part of that. Just, they did such a good job.
Oh,
You guys
yeah,
did a
yeah.
great
They
job.
did a great job.
celebrating, Yeah.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Okay. Jim, anything else?
No, that's all.
Okay. I think we're done.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. 5-0. We're now adjourned. Thank you. Good night, everyone.